Party is in an inn. There's a bustling crowd, drinkers and gamblers, thieves and scoundrels, barmaids shouting back and forth at each other and at the patrons. In one corner is a dark and mysterious stranger, in another, a tightly knit group of what can only be the local thugs. This is usually how your adventure begins, or at least in a lot of cases. Certainly this has become kind of the bog standard adventure beginning. You're in an inn. So you see a lot of questions out there about how to begin adventures that start in places that are other than an inn. There's a lot of options, and certainly, what those are and how they lead into the adventures is something worth examining. So what I've put together today are 5 ways that you can start an adventure without being in an inn. All right, so the first place that I often will have folks begin adventures instead of being in an inn is simply on the road. Now, in this case, you can have your party members start out together, or maybe they can just be traveling on the same road. And on the road, that can mean walking, riding in the same stagecoach, on the same train, depending on your setting. They could be on the same, Skydragon ferry, whatever your setting is. They could be in the same airship, but traveling in the same direction. Or in some cases, maybe they're going opposite directions and they strike up a conversation. Now, this works well for if you have players that have characters who are from very different places in your campaign setting, because roads, they could be traveling on their own destinations and cross one another's paths and find out that they have a common goal. You can often do this. This is useful if you have also thought of a few seeds for why those individuals might be traveling. Perhaps the man, the wood elf coming from the forests of the north, they are going southward because they've heard of some trouble in the Southlands, and they meet up with a westbound group of the rest of the party who are all from the capital city of Valentyr, and they are also investigating this trouble. So they meet up on the road. The wood elf can still be from where wood elves come from, and the rest of the party is from civilization. It could be also that the rest of the party, while they're traveling as a group, may have met along the way as well. The dwarf in the party may have come out of the hills to investigate what has been souring their water supply, and found out in talking with these people. So you can see where this goes. You can build the story in and have the party just be on the road already. It's a great opportunity for role-playing, but the key way, if you're going to use this opportunity, is this sort of a beginning, is to have in mind a reason why they're all on the road, and do a little work to predetermine this. Look at your players' characters, figure out where they're coming from, and why they would be traveling. That way, you're not going to end up with a possibility where all the party is going in different directions and they end up not wanting to travel together. So next, we have in a throne room or some other sort of courtroom, whether that's a legal court or a noble courtroom. It could be also ceremony at a temple, guild hall, town square. Basically, have the players in a setting where something is happening and they are all there at the same time. This allows for either a couple of things to happen. The players could be directly involved in that setting where they've been summoned there by the king, by the court, by the guild hall. They've been called by the town mayor. Whatever the reason is, for being in that place together. Now, again, sort of like being on the road, they may all be there as a group already, or they could be there as individuals being given the next task. And that is also the nice thing about this particular startup for a campaign or an adventure, is that the players are often being handed a task in the situation. The king is asking them or giving them an opportunity to, or commanding them to. The guild is hiring them. The high priest is beseeching upon them in the name of the gods to seek out what evil is harassing our fair land. So that you have that, and that having that task right from the get-go just dissolves all this doubt of, are we going to find the plot hook, are we going to find the adventure hook? But it's not sitting in an inn, and it's not waiting for the door to fly open and somebody to say, I need help, or some mysterious stranger to nudge you and hand you a note. Now, those are good opportunities, and that's a good way to use an inn, but if you're trying to get away from the inn again. All right, so the next part would be in the middle of a fight. This is put to great use in movies a lot, and also kind of goes back to the old pulps. I think they refer to this in media res. You see this a lot of times even in plays, in theater. The game begins with the party, with the players already engaged in battle. Now, they, again, like the previous beginnings here, they don't have to all be there as a unit. In other words, they're not necessarily an adventuring band, but if they're all, say, on the battlefront, they're perhaps all part of the King's Army. Maybe they are already in the last battle of the sort of alluded to previous adventure, and you're just kind of putting them there at the beginning, sort of like Indiana Jones, and he starts out at the mouth of the temple in the jungle in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or we see him start out, fighting with some thug, on a boat. We see these things as beginnings of adventures all the time. In Star Wars, we immediately open with the Star Destroyer chasing the Corellian Corvette there. I mean, we see all of this going on, and it just immediately puts us into the action. So your players and their characters are now in action. You get the action rolling. It really gives everybody an immediate chance to just get the energy up and to show off the abilities of their character class and their character and their particular character build. From there, we then have the battle end, and if it is being done as sort of the climax of a sort of off-camera previous adventure, they leave. It's an opportunity to maybe hand them a couple of items or some treasure. They go on to the next adventure, or maybe the item that they find is then the hook for the adventure you're setting up, or the whole campaign. Maybe they start out uncovering a tomb and they find this ancient tome bound in human skin with a horrible face on the front of it, and the rest of the game is all Lovecraftian goodness. Next would be like at a celebration, fair, wedding, etc. This is different than being called to court in example number 2, because in this case they're often participating in the event. Now, that's not to say that they might not be participating in the courtly affair, but in the previous one that was more of a summons where they are being called there, whereas this is more of a natural flow. If you're at a fair, a festival, a contest, a wedding, some sort of consecration that they're all participating in, there's going to be a little bit more of a ramble to it, some opportunities for role-playing and getting a feel for the setting and the people that are there. At some point in that that environment, in that setting, the quest giver or the quest item or the hook or the attack or whatever will happen. The party's going through the local market. They're going through the stalls. They're spending their some of their starting gold. There is a horrible howl and the bleating of a horn. The villagers suddenly are scrambling around, terrified, and up on the ridge of the nearest hill, you see several figures silhouetted against the evening sky. The sun setting behind them. Goblins are attacking, and that leads into your quest. It could be you're at a wedding. Everybody's having fun. It gets to the point you maybe have a little bit of a preamble. There's some role playing. The music begins. The ceremony starts. the vows begin to get exchanged, and then suddenly there's a gasp through the crowd as a lanky, gaunt figure, pale as death, cheekbones almost skeletal, glides down the aisle towards the nuptial couple there, and whisks away with the groom. Or there's a magical effect or whatever. He makes some proclamation cursing the congregation or the couple. Maybe an arrow flies from the crowd, striking the priest who's conducting the ceremony in the head, killing him. The players turn only to see the last fleeting steps of some cloaked figure carrying a crossbow running around the corner behind one of the event pavilions. In either case, you have an adventure hook that is born from this sort of connection with the community, this setting. The players will also get out of this an opportunity, like I said, to connect. They'll feel grounded. They've likely been role-playing with some of these NPCs. Maybe this is their home village. Maybe they're from the wider community. This could be the town. Their farmstead is around. Again, going back to the wood elf and the dwarf from the example, perhaps the wood elves live in the woods off to the edge of the pastoral fields and grazing lands. And they're friends to this community. Perhaps the dwarf that is there, his family has traded with this town for generations, and so they're, being a dwarf, the people of this town are family to him as well. It really, you have that binding. If it could be a halfling village, and if you have a halfling in the party, why not make it a halfling shire, a little town, little halfling community? And so the wood elf and the dwarf are there because they're still locals. You can mix it up. The last one that I want to talk about is starting the game at home. Mentioned a couple of things in the previous examples that they could be taking place in the player's home environment, but this one narrows it down literally at home. It's that knock on the round door of Bag End. It's the mysterious rattle on the knocker of the manor house in the middle of the night. Storm and thunder and the creak and rattle of that metal knocker at the door. It could be the specter of a long dead relative coming forth from the hearth fire to impart upon the party the quest. Players here could be a combination of friends who are gathered together at the house. Could be that one player is at home and those who are knocking on the door are the rest of the party. Split it however you may. It could be that an NPC is bringing in some of the party, but starting at home allows a few things. You get some good role-playing opportunities. There's a bit of an opportunity for the players to take in that initial quest, unless it's a werewolf, bashing through their window, or a vampire appearing in the middle of the room after a swarm of bats comes flying out of the hearth and swirls in the middle of the dining room. But it gives them an opportunity to kind of ease back, take in as a group what happened, prepare themselves, have that last little meal. If one of the players, whoever's home it is, or the players in general, the characters, I should say, have family there, it could be saying goodbye to family and friends, to the servants, to your beloved squire, whatever it is. Patting your dog on the head as you leave and go on the adventure. So anyways, these are 5 ways that I have started adventures, and most of them are drawn from where everything else in this hobby is: media, stories, movies, comic books, theater, whatever, ancient fairy tales, myths, legends. But if you're looking to start away from an inn, just pick a place, figure out a reason why people are there, what's going on, and how to fit your hook into that. Anyways, certainly appreciate you coming by. My plan is to start doing 2 videos a week. I was trying to get out as many as I could before, 3 a week. That wasn't working. I'm going to try and get them out on Sundays and Wednesdays. So you have one kind of at the top of the week and one at the middle of the week. and then it won't bug you on your weekends when you're trying to get your gaming time in. You can just kind of wake up Sunday morning and watch one. But certainly, if you have other ideas that you'd like to share for where you like to start your campaigns and your adventures, put them in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. If you feel that this information would be useful to your DM or another friend of yours who is in the hobby, by all means, go ahead and pass it on to them. Send them my way. You can email me at baittheelf@gmail.com. You can get me over on Twitter at elfbait. And there's the Elfbait Facebook group, so come on and join over there. We have some discussions there as well. Post a little funny comics, memes, things like that. It's also a good place to drop questions. You'll either get them answered in the comments, or they'll get turned into episodes, or sometimes both. But most importantly, as always, get out and game as much as you can. Thanks for coming by.